Good evening. I'm Gord Holder, and this is Ken Warren, and we're in the newsroom of the Ottawa Sun and the Ottawa Citizen, and we're here to talk about the social media controversy enveloping the Ottawa Senators, Mike Hoffman and Erik Karlsson, and particularly to talk about the impact it is going to have the team in a hockey sense. So, Ken, what did we find out today?
Well, it's quite a blockbuster news story, as I'm sure, no doubt, everybody has read by now about Erik Karlsson's wife filing an order of protection against Mike Hoffman's longtime girlfriend over endless months of harassment, including a lot of nasty comments after they lost their baby. At the end of the season, it's just a nasty story, and people are starting to weigh in like crazy, of course, online. But it is going to have an impact in terms of two players who were fundamental to this team, but whether they are going to have long-term futures with this team is probably very doubtful right now.
Okay, we're going to deal now with some of the questions that we've received online. First one, who's more likely to be traded at this point?
Well, if you go back to Pierre Dorion, general manager's comments going back 2-3 months ago at the town halls, he said he was not going to trade Erik Karlsson until they at least offered him a new contract on July 1st. That's according to the CBA guidelines. They cannot do that. What's coming up next week, of course, is the NHL draft. I would think, given the fact that there was speculation about Hoffman being traded earlier, and the fact that this has come to light, the sooner you can trade Mike Hoffman, the better. So I wouldn't be surprised in the least if Mike Hoffman was dealt as some kind of a package at the draft June 22nd, June 23rd.
Next, does this impact Mike Hoffman's trade value?
Well, I think...
How could it not?
Of course. Well, it certainly puts some urgency to it. And I mean, I've got to think that... the Senators are in a little bit of a crisis management here. How do you deal with something like this when you were trying to trade Mike Hoffman, but now this news, it's not a hockey player situation, but in terms of the cloud around it, it can't help. So of course it hurts, and it puts the Senators and Pierre Dorion in a tough position.
Next question. What teams could be interested in Mike Hoffman still at this point?
Oh, I think there'd be any number of teams interested. I mean, he does have a fairly hefty salary. It's $5 million a year, but he is the type of player with his shot and his playmaking abilities that he could make. He could play on the top two lines of just about any team in the NHL. Now, typically in these situations, if you have a choice, Eastern Conference team would want to trade a player to a Western Conference team if you have a choice, because you don't have the chance of that player coming back and
well, you only play them twice a year.
Right. So that's a perfect scenario, but at this point, I don't know if there are any perfect scenarios for the Senators in this crisis they're in right now.
I can't see that one. Let's try again. Is every team interested in Erik Karlsson?
Every team is interested in Erik Karlsson's talent, but what he'd be looking for now. Let's play this out again here. Because he has a year remaining on his contract after July 1st. And what happens in that case is then the Senators do not want to prolong that as long as they go, because his value would diminish. So they will offer him a contract on July 1st at what they believe would have been fair market value for him. Now, if Erik Karlsson looks at that and says, look, I don't think it's fair market value, or if he looks and says, I don't know where this team is headed and I'm uncomfortable with that, then it opens the door for teams that are willing to spend what might be $10 to $11 million per year for Karlsson. So, I think that does limit the number of teams. Sure, his talent is there, and every team would want his talent, but who can afford $10 to $11 million on an 8-year contract, or 12 even? And I think, we can go back to the teams that were apparently interested around trade deadline time. The Vegas Thunder, Vegas Golden Knights. Where did Vegas Thunder come from? Vegas Golden Knights, even as great as their playoff run could be, they could be in the mix. I still think the New York Rangers could be a possibility. So, again, a few teams that maybe come to the top of that list.
What can the Senators expect in return for either or both of these players?
Well, you want to get some bodies back that could play immediately, no question. Some players, some younger players preferably, because we know the mandate here is to cut salary and to develop. And on top of that, you want young prospects or draft picks in return. So, usually for somebody like Karlsson, it's usually a big package, 2 or 3 or 4 players that would come back. But, they're not getting traded together now. So we can eliminate that option. You look at different things we talked about at the trade deadline when Bobby Ryan's name surfaced in trade possibility with Erik Karlsson and how that might play out. Well, let's make one thing perfectly clear. Erik Karlsson or Mike Hoffman are not going to be going to the same team, given everything that's happened here. So usually 3 or 4 type players, or a package of 3 or 4 players, including high draft picks.
If both Karlsson and Hoffman are traded, how do the other Senators players react? Who steps up to lead the team?
Well, there's any number of possibilities. I think Mark Stone's role within the team has steadily grown over the years. He's become more and more of a voice. He's become a very, very solid player. He's a point-a-game player. He is their best player beyond Karlsson, no question about it. And he has taken on a leadership role in more than just on the ice in the past 2-3 seasons. So I think he would be a guy that would step up in that situation. I think maybe we'd see Matt Duchene get an A to help out. He had a good run. As bad as the Senators' season was, he was very good in the second half of the year. So I think you'd see him taking on a bigger role. But there's no question that the face of this team will change dramatically. I don't see Karlsson coming back, but it is possible at this point. In any way you shape it, it's going to be a different looking Senators team.
Does this recent news change how Pierre Dorion, the Senators' general manager, approaches the NHL draft?
Now, that's a good question, because I think the draft in itself, you look at it and it's like, hey, we want to get the best future players we possibly can to build this team, and it might not be in the first case of a first round pick, 4th overall, sure, that guy could probably help you immediately. But in terms of more and more and more players down the road, you're looking for players that can help you 3, 4, 5 years. So that shouldn't change. You have scouts who've done their work, they put in their homework, they understand who is there at the spots the Senators pick. They also have another pick late in the first round, 22nd, I believe. That's from Pittsburgh in the trade for Derek Brassard went to Pittsburgh. So I don't think it changes that part of it in the drafting the young players, but it might change in terms of what's happened with Hoffman here. Maybe there's a little bit more of an urgency to make that trade, and that could, of course, impact draft picks coming back.
As I understand it, they don't have a 2nd or a 3rd round
Right.
pick, correct? So if they trade Hoffman, that might have to be part of the
I would,
return.
with the talk for the past 2 or 3 weeks or months, I guess, would be maybe you turn that 22nd, the first round pick is 22nd overall, into getting an additional 2nd or 3rd round pick as well, right? So sometimes you can package that. But I would think you're right. I think you're probably going down the right avenue there. If somebody has a package and willing to take Mike Hoffman, then maybe you get another draft pick or 2 in return.
Will this scare players away from coming to Ottawa during NHL free agency?
I certainly don't think it's going to help matters. I mean, it's been a tough year for Ottawa for any number of reasons. That from where the lofty place they were last year in the Eastern Conference Final, it fell apart very quickly. There's been a lot of stuff. When Kyle Turris left, there was a lot of baggage there that we heard from him leaving. Players talk, and as we know, and it's this other part of the hockey world. The outside, you've got a support group around this, and the wives and girlfriends, well, they're part of it. You want to make everybody in your family happy when you come in. So certainly this doesn't help. Does it hurt? Yeah, probably a little bit it does.
Are any prospects currently in the Senators organization ready to fill the holes if Hoffman and Karlsson are traded?
Not immediately to that impact, but I think we're going to see Colin White play next year. We saw him up and down last year from from Belleville, and had some pretty good stretches. I would think you're going to see him have a very good chance to be a regular, maybe in the top two lines. As for replacing Karlsson, well,
good luck.
It's going to be a long year if Karlsson is traded. Trying to find somebody. I mean, you're not going to find it. There's nobody else in the league
Who does that?
Who does what Karlsson does. So, they're going to have to try. It's going to be a long year. You're going to have to try to put people in different spots and different roles. But there is no immediate replacement. No, there's nobody that can fill his void.
How long until Hoff is traded? Surely he can't stay.
Well, like we say, no, I don't think when something like this
When's
happens,
the draft? Is a week from Friday?
June 22nd. I would think that if they can do anything on that weekend, it clears up some of the. You just can't have this going on. And it is a talk around a dressing room when this stuff happens. It is a talk, not even around the dressing room, but it's around the bigger circle of family and the support group. So sometimes people forget that it's everybody has to nobody gets along 100% all the time. It's like any family or any work environment. But this one is a blockbuster, and I think the sooner Hoffman gets traded, the easier it is for the Senators to deal with.
What do the next 2 weeks look like for Pierre Dorion?
I don't think anybody would want to be in his shoes right now. Very difficult. I mean, from a straight hockey point of view, he trusts himself and his scouts in what they've done in the background. They look at the players that they want to pick. They know where everybody is slotted. You're talking about the teenagers coming up, and they have this organization has a fairly good track record of drafting and drafting decent players. So that part of it, trust that works. There's another issue going on in Buffalo with Assistant General Manager Randy Lee and what happened there. That's going to hamper things because there's another voice in the room. So that's going to be a bit of a distraction as well. But I think, you get to if it gets this far, to the Wednesday and Thursday of the draft and Friday, I'm sure Pierre Dorion will be receiving some offers from Mike Hoffman, and he's got to weigh them all and try to get the best return. And I think the Karlsson thing will go into July 1st, and that I guess is, if they make the offer to Erik Karlsson and he doesn't like what he sees, then the next few days are very difficult for Pierre Dorion, because you have to again weigh the best offers you're going to receive from around the league.
Both have been in trade rumors. It's fair to say that at least one of the two is 100% gone now, right?
Oh yeah,
maybe both.
Yeah, again, I think if you strip away the news from today, okay, so let's just strip it away from a hockey talent part of things. Mike Hoffman might have been traded just as a player in a rebuilding team making $5 million a year for 2 more years. You weigh that, and a team that's not going to spend anywhere near a salary cap, they probably would have certainly considered trade options for Mike Hoffman. Now we've added another layer to this that is beyond hockey, and I think it spurs that along. So I really do think come July 1st, or I don't think Mike Hoffman will be a member of the Senators. Get to July 1st, strange things could happen. There is this remote chance that maybe Erik Karlsson sees some light down the road and says, hey, maybe there's a way I can stay here long term. But if you're looking at the two of them, like you say, one or two are gone 100%, I would say yes.
I've got one of my own. Hockey dressing rooms, NHL dressing rooms, are notoriously tight. And good teams, they're even tighter, during successful seasons. How did the Senators manage the dressing room going forward?
Well, that's a great question. It comes down to GM. It comes down to coach. It comes down to whoever your leader is going to be in that room. They have to address these things head on. That room, a lot of things happened last year that made people, I don't know if to say second guess each other on the ice, but there's certainly, as you start losing, I mean, things are going bad. They went from bad to worse to worse to worse, and there are issues between players. But that happens that happens on every team that's losing, because you start second guessing what other players are doing. You start wondering, well, if this isn't working, let's try it a different way. Why is players? Why is this guy playing more than I'm playing? If this is happening, that stuff happens when you're losing. If you're winning, it doesn't happen as much. I mean, we can go back. All you have to go back is a year earlier when Clark MacArthur returned, and not everybody's 100% happy with the ice time they're receiving, but when you are winning and they're on a roll,
You accept it.
you accept it. And you've been in dressing rooms too. I mean, good teams, great teams, everybody's at some point buys into it. But when you're losing, it falls to the wayside. Now, this stuff that happened today is a little different from the norm.
A lot different.
So it's a distraction, but that's what training camps are for. Before training camps, to try to set the record straight, or to try to find a new direction.
What should the Sens do with that first-round pick? Have their needs changed?
No, I don't think so. I think you pick a player who is going to be a player, hopefully for you, for the team, that can play 10, 15 years and be a standout player. I think most people who watch the NHL draft, they know that they know who number one is going to be. It's going to be Dalton. He's gone, and then there's 3 or 4 players. Most of them wingers. There's Brady Tkachuk and Svechnikov and Philip Zadina. So one of those players is probably going to be in within reach of the Senators, and I think they have to go and get a player that they think can have a big impact, regardless of everything else that's going on. You want to draft the best possible player.
Well, we're going to wrap it up now. It's been kind of an extraordinary day in the news around the Ottawa Senators. Thank you for watching.